I'm glad that you're all back from lunch, looking awake and hopefully energized. And I can tell you from the few interactions I've had with our next speaker, she's not going to let you fall asleep. So be prepared to get engaged. But it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Patricia Walker, who is an executive partner with Accenture's global retail practice and the lead for North American retail operations. Over the past 20 years, Patricia has worked to help retailers drive bottom-line profit in merchandising, customer-centric stores, and multi-channel retailing. And Ms. Walker has led several retail transformation programs that utilize customer-centric strategies to drive demand, gain better return on investments in IT, and create processes that drive competitive advantage. And in doing all of this, she found time as well to co-author a Harvard Business Review article titled Welcome to the New World of Merchandising. So without further ado, please welcome Patricia Walker.
Okay, so Dale is presenting after me today, and I told him that my #1 goal is to make sure that I stave off the food coma until after my presentation so that you can all fall asleep during his. I just got to keep you awake for the next 45 minutes. So, I am very excited to be here. This is my first global retailing conference, and I have to tell you, I've been to tons of retail conferences over the 20 years that I've worked in retail. And I have never seen the energy level that I've seen at this conference. It's very, very exciting. It's great to have the students. I think the students are terrific, and we're going to get them involved today, too. And it's just a wonderful place to be, and I'm very, very excited to be here. And hopefully I get welcomed back next year as well. So what I'm going to do is start off with just a short video. It's not going to be dark for long, so no falling asleep. Hopefully the music will keep you awake, and then we'll get going. So I think I know what you're all thinking right now. Right here, right now, there's no place I'd rather be. Have I been getting too much of that dopamine we talked about this morning? Seems like a beach in Hawaii or a beach in Fiji or a beach somewhere else would be a better place to be right here, right now. But my father was an eye doctor, and we spent a lot of time making sure that we got our vision right when we were younger. And I'm here to tell you that right here, right now is the place you want to be. And it's all about looking at it from a different lens. We talked a lot this morning about some of the difficult times that we've had. Stock market's been at a bad place. Consumer confidence is low. Spent a lot of time talking about that. I'm not going to spend much time on this. What I am going to tell you, though, is that recessions present opportunities. They present opportunities for leadership and innovation. Accenture's Institute for High Performance did some research around 850 companies that lived through the recession of 1991. What's interesting is that those companies that outperformed their industry the following 6 years of the recession actually grew in the recession. If you look at Best Buy and Charles Schwab, they were less than $1 billion before the recession started. They grew 20 to 30%. If you look at other downturns, Intel and Southwest in 1979, Amazon in 2000, they all grew during the downturn. So let's figure out how we can have that right lens. And with that right lens, winners will take advantage of this recession. Okay, first thing here we want to think about with this. In order to figure out how we can take advantage of this recession, we have to have a view of the future. We have to have a view of retail in 2020. And that's what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on up front. It's really figuring out what's the future going to look like. Because while we want to do a lot of things this year and we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of right here, right now, we want to make sure we're doing it in the right context. The store concept will be completely different in 2020. Why? Shopper frequency is flat to declining in practically every category. We've heard that this morning. Consumers want service. They want interaction. They want experience. They want information. They don't just want product. We commissioned a survey in Italy, and we were trying to figure out, of the innovative technologies, what is the European market looking for? So we put out a bunch of leading technologies, and we let people go and test them and see what they liked. And what they lean toward is technologies that provide information and service in an on-demand fashion. Consumers are comfortable with on-demand. They're looking for those interactions in the store to be rich in information, to be rich and exciting. If it's just about the product, they'll go to another channel and get that. The store is not just about the product anymore. What we see the impact of some of this is we see showrooms popping up. If you can take the inventory out, people are all used to shopping on the internet and getting their product the next day, not having instant gratification. So why not look at showrooms? Rent and return, figuring out how to do that. It's already being done in handbags and children's toys. We see that expanding as well. So think about it. Stores are going to be a very different world. They need to be an entertainment experience. Trend number 2 in Retail 2020. There is a segment out there, and many of them are in the room today, who will never visit a store. It's the millennials. They're coming. They're here. These are consumers that are in their mid-teens to late 20s. They were born with a cell phone and an iPod in their hand, and when they came out, they went to a social networking site and they announced they're here. They'll drive mobile devices being the primary way to get to the internet, not PCs. When the millennials were polled, they said that over half of the transactions that they do, they would be fine and comfortable and look to do in a self-service or an internet model. Think about that. 50% of their transactions they're comfortable not doing in a physical presence at all. We're already seeing signs of this trend. Meijer tripled its sales this last Cyber Monday. Over half of those sales came from states that Meijer has no physical presence whatsoever. The millennials will have a big impact on how we think about retail in 2020. Trend number 3, channels must be reinvented, not incrementalized. I'm not talking about figuring out how to buy it online and pick it up from the store, or pick it up differently, or buy it online and have it delivered at home. I'm talking about complete reinvention. This is about consumers designing their own product. It's about consumers designing a store. In the case of Ahold Europe, they let the consumers design their new store, and they implemented it. 54% of millennials, that group I just talked about a little earlier, change or modify something that they have to meet their own need. So they're buying stuff and they're changing it anyway. So what did Nike do to capitalize on that? They let them design it up front. You go to the website for Nike, they design their own product up front, so they're not changing or modifying. They're satisfied in the very beginning, and by the way, they got their creative juices flowing earlier in the process. That site has 3 million unique visitors each month. 3 million unique visitors each month to design your own sneakers. 60% of the millennials take advantage of opportunities companies give them to make their product better. They're out there. This is free advice. We spend a lot of money on consumer research and going out and finding all this information. These consumers are out there. They're ready to engage. They want to engage. We have to give them the right avenues to engage in. Starbucks has done this. They've launched MyStarbucksIdea.com. Consumers can go out there. They can enter all kinds of different ideas about products, about service, about what Starbucks should do. Other consumers then rate all those ideas. So now you get a lot of social interaction and group think around these ideas. And then they take those ideas and they put them into action. This is all free information for retailers. People are willing to take their valuable time out of their day and spend it helping you help them. Channels have to be reinvented, not incrementalized. You have to think about ways to engage and get the people who are willing to help you involved in the process. Trend number 4. Retailing is going to be less about distribution and more about marketing. That's a pretty big statement. Things are going to turn a little bit on their side. Consumers are craving information, and they're increasingly using the digital channels to get it. So how are you as retailers going to get that information out there? First of all, the information that consumers actually read more and have more value in is the content that other consumers created, not the content that all of you created. Consumers are out there. They're creating this content. You have to figure out how to harness that content and add your own content to be differentiated in the marketplace. Much more about marketing than distribution. Nearly 81% of all young consumers consume social media content. They look at blogs, they read forums, they listen to podcasts, they look at videos on YouTube. How are you organized to really harness that excitement and that information? If you think about it, this really turns retail on its side a little bit. Not about distribution, really about marketing and getting that information out there. This really also drives a convergence of retail, media, and telecom. You can't accomplish these things without media and telecom. You need skills in all of those areas to really be able to drive your strategic vision. Trend number 5. I'm sure this one is going to be pretty key to those sitting in the back of the room and in this program here. Today's retailers are not equipped to deal with Retail 2020. They don't have the right skills and the capabilities. When asked when and where the retail talent crisis would hit, retailers responded, "It's right in front of us, and it affects our front line, those associates that are interacting with the customer." By 2020, there will be a shortage of 30 million knowledge worker jobs. You're not going to be able to find the talent to do all this analytics if we don't do something different in retail to look at the talent pool differently. This combination of consumer demands around information, around all of the different skills that are necessary, really drives the need for a dynamic talent network. This is not recruiting as you're used to. This is not an employee base as you're used to. This is looking at alternative sourcing models that allow you to leverage all kinds of different sources that you can't leverage today. There's a company in Japan that's launched a service that anybody can tie into. All they need to do is go up, enter their name, and then check off all their skills and give a text number, a phone number, or email, or whatever kind of contact information electronically they can get. Companies then enter tasks that they need done, whether it's next week or this afternoon or 2 weeks from now. The system matches those up, immediately sends a text message to whatever the match is. So these applicants can be on the golf course looking for jobs because they've entered their profiles. They can hop on, leave their house one day and go work for 2 hours if there's an urgent need somewhere. That's the flexible kind of dynamic network that needs to continue to develop. Google and P&G, they're already doing this. They're swapping 20 employees a year. Employees go back and forth to the companies. They share knowledge. They learn new stuff. They understand what are the differences in the industry. This is a way to gain new skills in your company without actually recruiting into that company. We've got to get creative about talent because the crisis is here, and we have to figure out a way to get retail to be at the top of the list for those that are coming out of colleges, for those that are coming out of MBA programs, and for those that are in industry and in these fields like media and telecom. We've got to figure out a way to get them into retail because it's here and it's just going to get worse. Trend number 6. Today, 80% of the inventory is held in stores. By 2020, why couldn't we have designed a supply chain that's predicated on inventory arriving just as the need emerges? I'm not talking about today where we do automatic replenishment, we have safety stocks and all these things piling up. I'm talking about just as the need arises. It's really just in time. It's not sort of the bastardized just in time that's happened over the last decade. Really figuring out how to do that. Showrooms plays right into that. You only have what you need for the person to actually make the purchase, but then that inventory comes from central and gets out to the consumer. That type of new thinking is what we're going to need in order to flip that ratio and get only 20% of our inventory in stores. Meadowwall is one of the UK's largest shopping centers. They're teaming with Clipper Logistics, and they have an on-site consolidation center, and they've been able to increase sales and decrease logistic costs. 7-Eleven is testing centralized distribution for beverages to 300 stores. Several other retailers are creating a consortium with DHL and pooling their transport services. We've got to really think about the supply chain and think about how to reduce that inventory because it's a big cost that's holding us down that we need to figure out how to change in order to get to Retail 2020 and meet those customer demands. Fast fashion. Fast fashion started with apparel, but it's going to become and is starting to become the way of doing business. Target and Zara have already taken the fast fashion concepts and applied them outside of apparel into home goods. What does that mean for retailers? It's a big change. It's a big shift. It's a big shift to their culture. It's a significant shift to the supply chain. But huge, huge benefits. We talked about that dopamine this morning. This is what's going to cause the dopamine because the store is going to be fresh. There's going to be new stuff. People want to go back in the store. That's what's going to cause people to go shopping. New stuff, fresh, and experience. Not just the same old, this is my event for today, I'm going to shop around the mall. As we talked about, huge portion of the population won't go into a store, but if you create a compelling proposition for them to get there, they will go into the store, and fast fashion is the way you're going to do it. It means a huge reliance on customer insight. Can't accomplish fast fashion unless you understand who your customer is and what they want and what needs you're not meeting. American Eagle has increased their market research and focus specifically on consumer input around product design and development. You know, who would have thought 5 years ago that we were going to be asking the consumers for input on the product design and the development of the product? That's going to continue to be the trend for Retail 2020 and really has to be in order for us to accomplish fast fashion as a way of doing business. Trend number 8, we hear a lot about green. Think green, be green. There's all kinds of green slogans out there. I say we need to rethink green. Green is here to stay, for sure. According to research, 36% of adults claim to regularly buy green products. That number just 16 months ago was only 12% of adults. This is here to stay. It's trending forward. We got to figure out a way to address it. But we've got to figure out a way to address it profitably. This can't be a marketing thing. This can't be a side thing. This has to be an operating model that is profitable and is a great value proposition for the consumer as well as the retailer. Pão de Açúcar in Brazil opened its first green store. They've reduced their water consumption by 10%. They've reduced their energy by 14%, and in doing that, they're able to present a better value proposition for their customers. So those stores have increased sales, increased profitability over all the other stores because they're able to lower their operating costs and able to provide a great value proposition to consumers. But green is not just about the operating model. Green is also about consumer behavior. Consumer behavior will change. as consumers start to really think about green, they're going to buy differently. They're going to look to you to present things differently. Take those reusable shopping bags that are pretty much ubiquitous now all over the place, started with some of the more progressive grocers. Interesting concept. What if we took that concept and we applied it to all consumables? So rather than buying all those things that are packaged in crazy packaging and lots of plastic and lots of cardboard, all we do is we take a container and we go to our local retailer and we fill up that container. How can we apply those types of concepts? Consumers are going to start demanding that, and those that are ahead of the curve are going to get in first and start to actually work with the consumers to figure out different ways to do things. Rent and return, going to definitely increase. The National Association of Resellers and Thrift Shops. I bet you guys didn't know there was a National Association of Resellers and Thrift Shops. They've reported that 75% of their members, of their stores, have seen a 35% increase. This isn't just because of the economy. There are economic reasons for this, but this is also because this is considered green. Consumers want things in their closet, but they want to reuse. They want to reuse, recycle, and they see going to thrift stores as a way to reuse. Companies like Tesco and Staples, they're rewarding their customers for behaving green. They're giving them bonus points in their loyalty programs for using recycled bags, returning cartridges, et cetera. So green is really twofold. It's really about figuring out what your operating model is and how can you reduce your costs and be green and therefore present a better value proposition to your consumer, but it's also about the products you sell and the way you interact with the consumers. That's green as well. Lack of barriers to entry. This is going to significantly increase competition in retail. For many decades now, there's a huge barrier to entry because you needed to invest a ton of capital in stores to get into retail. So those that were in it already and had stores had a significant advantage. That advantage is gone. With a significant piece of the population never stepping into a store, it's gone. There's no advantage there anymore. There's very low barrier to entry in retail. Increased competition. This causes wildfire niches, which are these brands someone creates online, gets out there, hugely hot, all over the place, gets cold just as quickly, goes away, and then those folks work on a new brand. And all of these legacy brands that all of you represent in this room today are going to figure out how to compete with those types of things, with the wildfire niches. Google AdWords allows people to just get out there and start marketing. Doesn't require a whole lot of capital at all. Zillow is an online site that anybody can be a merchant. They go in, they create their own store, and the retailers are paying them to be a merchant just by the way they present the merchandising differently. There's a very, very low barrier to entry now. And so traditional brands need to figure out how to react and compete, but maybe also they need to figure out how to create their own wildfire niches. How do they take advantage of the low barrier to entry and supplement their traditional brands? Okay, the last trend here for Retail 2020 is retail live or always on. Consumers today, and it will get even greater in the future, they're always on. They're always ready to browse, they're always ready to buy, they're always ready to design, they're always ready to test, they love to comment, they love to give the input as we talked about, they're ready to socialize and participate in all kinds of different networks. Leading retailers are going to need to take advantage of this. H&M is allowing their customers to buy products using their camera phone. Project Canoe is something funded by 6 major cable companies and Apple TV, where consumers can buy right off the TV. It's 24/7, it's all over the place, but it's not just commerce. We gotta make sure we're not focusing just on commerce here, we're focusing on social interaction, we're focusing on the whole brand encompassment. We're talking about design, test, comment, always on, always live. How are you as retailers going to be there for the consumer when they're there ready to do some of this for you? Those that aren't there are going to miss the opportunity to either sell more or get better brand recognition or better customer loyalty because they're there when the customer wants them there. So I'm going to pause here for a little bit. I'm going to try to play my best talk show host. And since we have so many millennials in the room with us, and that's such a huge piece of retail going forward, I'm going to go back into the back of the room here and ask some of our millennials what they think the biggest effect of retail is going into 2020. This is free market research, right, guys? Let's get their opinion here. So where are all my ambassadors with microphones? Some of them have been warned, some of them haven't. So, what's your name?
Scott.
Scott. Okay, are you on?
Am I on?
Nope.
I guess that a stereotype about millennials being technologically savvy has just been disproved.
So Scott, what I'd like you to tell the group here is you've heard a lot about what my opinion is of what's going to happen in Retail 2020. And since you're such a huge part of who the consumer is going to be in Retail 2020, I'd like you to give your opinion to the group on what they should be really thinking about as they try to strategize and move forward in this recession.
Well, I know with personal experience when I'm looking online and shopping, I need a very viable reason to order online versus just going to the store, especially when there's one really conveniently located. And I will drive over rather than pay the shipping costs. And so for me, that's really huge. And also just providing special offers for people who are online versus walking in the store, maybe. But
okay, great. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Virginia. I remember I have to pay for my own phone bill because the parents decided to cut me off since I talk too much on my phone. So I was on various phone sites, and I found myself very confused, even though I'm supposed to be tech savvy. I was still kind of confused as far as what plan I wanted, what features I wanted. So I actually ended up with Verizon, and one reason why I decided to end up with them was because they had this really great live chat option. And I've been noticing that on a lot of websites where you can buy things and actually talk to an associate. So even though I'm staring at a computer screen, I think in the future there still needs to be that personal element where somebody's actually there giving you advice, and I was able to get my plan really simply after that. So.
Okay, great. Want to take one more?
I can do it.
Okay.
My name's Lauren Armbruster, by the way. For me, what really resonated with your presentation was the fast fashion turnover. I think to me that's very important. Some of the stores, just name dropping right now, that I think do an amazing job of that would be like Urban Outfitters, H&M, and Topshop. I could probably go there every week, if not more, because every week they offer different merchandise. So it really keeps the customer coming back. And then also the fact that I trust their brand. I know that whatever I buy there is gonna, make me look good. So I think those are two reasons. And then also the Go Green aspect of your presentation. I know a lot of times that it's really important to the younger generation also to start going green, but with companies that are, say, over marketing, like you said, it's kind of hypocritical when you see a company spending millions upon millions of dollars on a marketing campaign. Like, well, why couldn't you have put that money in some sort of other resource to go green for your company? So I agree very much with those 2 points.
Okay, great, thank you. So nobody call Oprah and tell her that her job is at risk because I'm going to come over and take over her talk show there. But I thought since I was talking so much about this generation and we have them all in the room that it would be terrific to get some comments on it. What I'm going to do now is switch gears a little bit. We talked a lot about future of retail and Retail 2020, and what I want to do is sort of zoom out from the store. So we've got the store, the shelves in the store. We're going to zoom out to the storefront, then we're going to zoom out to the mall and the region, then we're going to zoom out to a bigger region, and then we're going to look at the earth. And I think in order for us to figure out what we're going to do right now, right here, right now, and how we're going to capitalize on this recession and how we're going to incorporate some of the things we talked about in 2020, we really need to take a broader view and figure out what are we going to do to capitalize in this recession. Okay, I'm sure this one will get a little bit of excitement. So think about this. The current people that are 10 to 17 years old will spend 23 years of their life online. That doesn't mean they'll be alive for 23 years and they'll be going on and offline. It means when you add up the time of 23 years, that's how much time that age group will spend online. So if that isn't reason enough to think of the store maybe as an extension of the web versus the web as an extension of the store, I don't know what is. Now, the title of my presentation is Store Strategies. And I understand the store is still a very, very important part in retail. But to get to Retail 2020 and to start thinking about it now in today's recession, we really need to think about the store as a cog in a wheel or a piece of a network. These other channels are equally as important as the stores. And we need to figure out a way to look at those channels like the consumer does. The consumer sees one brand, one way to get to you. This is H&M, I trust that H&M brand, and the consumers think whatever interaction with what they have, it's there. The retailers need to start thinking like that. They need to start thinking like the consumers. An example of this that's happening right now in the marketplace, Best Buy. They offer a seamless experience online in the stores. Through their loyalty program, they know in the store what you've bought online. And they're able to tailor the experience that you have in the store to what you've done in all of Best Buy, not just in that store, but online and in the store as well. Okay, now you're all probably thinking, what am I going to say here? Maximize your sales force. Hopefully, your sales force don't necessarily look like this. But the truth is that every associate is in sales and service. Every associate. So your responsibility is to give them the right tools and the right capabilities to make sure that every interaction you have with that customer is a great one, regardless of who it is or where they are in the organization. They have to have the right tools and capabilities. A retailer that has done this brilliantly is Zappos. They have a culture that is sales and service. Their culture is what they call the best asset they have. Every single person in that company views themselves as somebody who's there for sales and service to the customer. I don't know what the Zappos sales associates look like because they're always on the phone, so maybe, maybe this guy's him. Okay, next one. How do managers spend their time? We know that store managers are a huge piece of the sales organization. And so we need to figure out how to make sure we leverage them. We take our best people, we put them in the store manager role, and then we load them up with a bunch of administrative tasks, and all they do is fill out paperwork. And we're not using our best asset for sales or service or coaching or anything. We're using them to fill out a bunch of paperwork. So we got to figure out how to get managers to be coachers, not doers. We worked with one retailer to do this. We reduced the manager's tasks from 35% to 7%. We increased the manager's time to coach, to manage, from 50 to 75%. This shift allowed more time for coaching and managing for both sales and merchandising associates. They increased sales and they held labor steady. This is a huge differentiator that can be done right here, right now, and can lay the groundwork for the future. Live training, there's nothing like it. For those of you in the back of the room, this is a movie called The Karate Kid. And you might want to watch it someday because it's a really great movie. I ran out of time trying to think of what everybody in the room would get. Anyway, so live training, there's nothing else like it. Human reinforcement is critical. Now this goes against some trends that we've seen over the last decade of computer-based training and all that other stuff, and all that stuff is good. But we've gone too far. We've taken out that live element. We've taken out the coaching element. So we've got to figure out a way to get some initial live training there and then wrap around that live training some very cost-effective rewards and recognition programs. This doesn't need to be expensive. This is all about just me telling you you did a good job, and then you telling somebody else they did a good job. It's all about bringing somebody up at a meeting and saying, this is what Ken did yesterday, and he did a great job. But they have to have that base first of what good looks like, and that's what requires some live training. Then you need the reinforcement, and then you need the measurement. So this is about rethinking training a little bit and rethinking where that live piece can play and how to make sure you have that closed loop. Okay, challenge the status quo in supply chain. This requires a lot of cross-functional work, but it gets results. We worked with a retailer to figure out how to streamline the store operations, store processes, how to get the merch to the floor faster, not stuck in the back rooms, not stuck in trailers, not stuck in the supply chain somewhere, and at the same time reduce labor costs. So we're reducing the costs, and we're actually getting the merchandise to the floor faster. But the one thing was, it required changes in the supply chain. It required more frequent shipments. So we were able to get the results, and we were able to change that, but we had to challenge the status quo. We had to get a cross-functional team in the room, and we had to make it happen. And that's what you need to do right here, right now, in this recession, to start to work toward 2020, where we have a lot less than 80% in the stores, and where we have different avenues to the customer. We have to start thinking now and changing the status quo now, and it'll drop money to the bottom line. Okay, get more sales with less consumer choices. So take products off the shelves and sell more and increase your margins. How do you do this? What you do is you analyze the attributes of a product, and you figure out what are the attributes that are really driving consumer behavior. Once you figure that out, you reduce your store assortment to make sure that you're covering all those attributes, but not over-covering those attributes. You reduce the inventory because you have a smaller assortment. You increase your sales because you still have what your customers need, and in fact, it's a lot less confusing for the customers, so they wind up buying more. And you increase your margin because you're putting the best products that you can have out there with the best margin for that particular attribute for that customer. Because attributes are transferable, many attributes are transferable, you actually increase sales, you don't lose sales, because you still have what the customer wants, because that attribute is transferable. It may be, in this example, a grip on a pencil. And you don't know what the attributes are until you analyze them. In this case of office supplies, we increased revenues by 13 to 23%. We increased gross margin by 17 to 26%. And we reduced inventory. And some of the side benefits are, and these are huge benefits, some of the side benefits are you free up space to put new innovative product out there. You don't need as much space and you get more sales. You increase your sales on space. You streamline your store processes because you're not clogged up with a whole huge different assortment. It's much easier for the stores to set. It's much more clear for the stores to set. You reduce that labor. And by the way, while you're looking at these attributes, you figure out the ones that are best in what channel. Going back to the store is only one cog in the wheel. You look at these attributes and you say, you know what? It doesn't make sense to have this in the store. The consumers are buying this in a totally different way. What are all those products that the Meijer customers were buying on Cyber Monday that they'd never even stepped in a Meijer store? Those attributes, understanding those, you can now assort across all of your channels and understand where to put what. Get more sales with less consumer choices. This can be done now, and it plays right into Retail 2020. It reduces what's in the store. It makes the store exciting. It creates that come back in because I have new stuff. You're creating new space, and all the same, you're increasing margin, increasing sales, and reducing inventory. Make insight pay off. I think the best example of customer insight comes outside of retail. And I think we're all better off by thinking about things outside of retail and figuring out how we can apply them to retail. Harrah's was not the high performer in the casino industry. They hired a new CEO several years back, and he came and looked at what they were doing. And he turned Harrah's around. He turned them around to be the #1 casino, and they have the #1 loyal clientele in the casino industry. How did he do that? Customer insight. He bucked the trend in the casino industry. He didn't build big flashy buildings and figure out how to have a big pirate ship in front of his casino or big flashing fountains or anything like that. What he said is, I'm going to look at my customer data and I'm going to figure out what my customers want. And then I'm going to build to what my customers want. And what did he find? He found customers wanted service. And he created a loyalty program and a service model that is unmatched in the casino industry and continues to this day. What he calls it is his diamonds in the data mine. There's huge pieces of diamonds and all kinds of goodies in that customer data. And what's great about retail is we have a lot of data. Figuring out what those diamonds are and then acting on them appropriately is the way that Harrah's went from being a low-level performer in the casino industry to very high in the casino industry and quite frankly high across many, many industries. Okay, I love this slide. So that top, this is not my garage, by the way, even though that top part might look like it. This top slide is a mess, stuff all over. It probably looks familiar to everybody in this room, right? And the bottom part looks so great. And you're like, that is just so great. It's so organized. But does that really help us do anything? Does it save us any money? What's the impact something like that can have? All it is just a little bit of organization. Huge impact. We've worked with dozens of retailers all over the world in all different segments and looked at their back office and take the Toyota lean concepts and apply them to retail. And we get 5 to 20% productivity increases just by reorganizing the back room. This is a huge lever you can pull. It's a huge lever to pull costs out, and it's something you can do right here, right now to address where you are in your business. We hit on this a little bit earlier. Creating a customer-centric store means getting the right labor in the store. But not only getting the right labor, you have to get the labor there at the right cost. You can't just load up the store if you don't have the sales and revenue and margins associated with that cost. So one way that Tesco addressed this was they used ClearVista's Live Expert. This allows remote advisors. So it's sort of like the live chat example that was given a little bit earlier. They have face-to-face interactions with this Live Expert. It's efficient because it's a centralized, on-demand service model. That's what I talked about before. How are we going to fill all these jobs and how are we going to get all these experts in the retail industry there? This is a way to do that. You work centrally. It's efficient and it deals with that talent crisis. But it's also effective. When polled, 100% of the people, after they used this, said they were satisfied with it. 100%. And 98% said they'd use it again. This is a very interesting way to get that expertise in the store, to make sure that you have something interesting in the store that customers, when they come, they get what they're looking for. This is another one of my favorites. Create a unique experience. I have no idea where this picture came from or what it's supposed to mean, but I figured it was pretty unique. So my example, we already hit on a little bit earlier this morning, and that is Apple. So we in retail traditionally think of technology company as probably more boring than retailers, right? We think retailers, we're a lot more exciting, we have a little bit more pizzazz, we get into the fashion. We usually think of technology companies as sort of engineers and low-key and sort of boring. Who beat us to the punch with the best store experience in the last 5 years? A technology company. If you asked people 5 years ago what Apple was, they would say it was a technology company. If you ask them today, they say it's a retailer, probably with the best store experience in the world. How can we have let a technology company beat us to the punch? We need to figure out ways to leverage what Apple's done. They've not only created service and interactions and information, but God knows from their results, They're doing a hell of a lot of commerce out of those stores. It's not just a concept store that's got a lot of funky things in it. People are buying in those stores, and they go into those stores for information from the geniuses. They go into the store because it's got a vibe. Someone said earlier, I just go in just to check it out. And how many times when people go in to check it out, do they actually buy something? Great example of creating a unique experience and rethinking the store based on what the millennials and what people are demanding today. Create a wow experience. Leverage all your channels, all your touch points. I love this marketing campaign that Topshop ran. They encourage people to come into the stores, to strike a pose, to put on some of their Topshop clothes. They took lots of pictures. They put it out in a little fashion shoot spread and printed it out for the customers. Then, geniusly, they posted it online. So all those people that's going to spend 23 years of their life online, they're now going to go online and look at their pictures. And you know what they might do while they're online? They might actually buy something. This is a way, a marketing campaign that drives commerce. It drives customer satisfaction. It plays right in to what the millennials and Gen Yers are looking for. It's a full multimedia answer to a marketing question. So my last slide is here. Research shows that winners invest in capability regardless of the business cycle, and they reap the rewards. Ivory Soap created soap operas during the Great Depression. Charles Schwab introduced discount commissions during the 70s recession. Pizza Hut introduced Pizza Hut Pete, and their sales increased 71% during the early 90s recession. Toyota is positioning itself as the official car of the 2009 recession. What are you going to do to be a winner in this recession? Thank you.